A ver, verga, haz caso. ¿Por qué te agarramos?
Porque me mató un niño, puse de años.
¿Quién y quién la robó?
Yo aquí lo gato.
¿Tú y quién?
Yo el niño.
¿Tú y el niño?
Yo, Jonathan.
¿Quién?
¿Quién más, güey? Jonathan.
¿Tú y el Jonathan?
Sí. ¿Quién más? No más.
¿Y por qué te está pasando esto?
Pues allá no la gente.
¿Por qué?
Pues allá no la gente.
This was the moment La Mayiza hitmen interrogated this man and set him on fire after he vandalized the grave of El Mayo's grandchild and stole his toys. But burning him alive wasn't enough revenge. The Mayos believed he'd been sent by the rival Chapitos, and a few weeks later, they struck back again, this time by blowing up the tomb of El Chapo's own son.
This Thursday morning, a strong explosion was recorded in the northern sector of Culiacán, which was identified as an attack against the cenotaph of Edgar Guzman, known as El Moreno, son of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and brother of Ovidio.
And the crazy thing is that this is not the first time something like this has happened. The graves of two other cartel leaders had also been vandalized months earlier, and in this case, their bodies were stolen. And the details of how they did it will send cold chills down your spine. This cartel war is out of control, and the dead can no longer rest in peace. So now everyone is asking, for how much longer will this have to go on? And whose grave are they hitting next? So, around 11 p.m. that night, residents living near the Bacurimi Cemetery in Culiacán, Sinaloa, alerted the fire department after they saw flames shooting out of the cemetery. This was the family mausoleum of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, the longtime leader of the Sinaloa cartel, where several generations of his family were buried.
A visit to the local cemetery is probably the most telling example of how Mexico's narco wars have played out in Culiacán.
And it's the cemetery of known narco traffickers where they construct these huge mausoleums over the gravesite. The family takes proceeds, of the dealer basically, and builds these structures in honor of their death. These can cost as much as apartments here. This one even has bars over the windows and a central alarm system.
Here, the dead are better off than many are in life. This mausoleum boasts a leather sofa, an homage to a girl and his Camaro, and even bottles of Ace of Spades champagne. So many are so young, 18, 20, 21.
It's a generation lost to a drug war that seems to know no end.
But the particular tomb that caught fire that night belonged to El Mayo's grandchild, the young son of his first son, Vicente Zambada Niebla, better known as El Vicentillo.
The mausoleums look like modern castles. Some have meeting rooms, second floors, bathrooms, and balconies. Others exhibit the toys belonging to the deceased, and even bottles of their favorite drinks. A mausoleum like this one can cost more than $200,000 to build. While in the same city, thousands of people live in poverty.
By the time emergency crews arrived, the marble crypt was already scorched, and inside they found burned toys, melted ornaments, and broken urns that once held the ashes of the family's relatives. Initially, the fire appeared to be an accident, but the strong smell of accelerant in the air was a clear indication that someone had intentionally set the fire, and that was a total humiliation for the Zambada clan. You see, even with the cartel violence ravaging Sinaloa, there's an unwritten rule that the dead are off limits, but that night, someone broke that code. Although the firefighters managed to contain the fire before it reached the child's coffin, the damage was already done, and naturally, all fingers pointed to the Chapitos, El Chapo Guzman's sons, who had been locked in this brutal war with the Mayos for control of Sinaloa. However, others believed a rogue cell staged the fire to erupt more violence. But none of that mattered to the Mayos, because they were already planning their revenge, but no one could have imagined how far they would go. So, not long after the fire in Bacurimi, a video started circulating around Culiacán. In it, a man was seen sitting on the ground, bruised, terrified, and trembling. Behind the camera, you could hear the voices of La Mayiza's hitmen demanding answers. One of them asked, "Why did we grab you?" And with a shaky voice, the man replied, "Because I messed with the kid's grave."
A ver, verga, haz caso. ¿Por qué te agarramos?
Porque me mató un niño, puse de años.
¿Quién y quién la robó?
Yo aquí lo gato.
¿Tú y quién?
Yo el niño.
¿Tú y el niño?
Yo, Jonathan.
¿Quién?
¿Quién más, güey? Jonathan.
¿Tú y el Jonathan?
¿Quién más? No más.
¿Y por qué te está pasando esto?
Pues allá no hay gente.
¿Por qué?
Pues allá no hay gente.
He confessed that he and another man, known as Jonathan El Nino, had broken into the Zambada family mausoleum. According to him, they not only set the fire, but also stole several things from the mausoleum, including small motorcycles, family urns, and toys that belonged to the little boy.
¡Porratero, verga!
¿Quién tiene la moto?
En la guerrita.
¿En la higuerita está? ¿Y quién la tiene?
Jonathan.
El Jonathan.
Oiga, despacio, esto.
Toma.
¿Qué?
No, dame la gasolina.
Ya no.
Yo.
Ya no. Te lo juro, ya no.
Te va a cargar la verga, hijo de tu puta madre.
Ya no.
Te cargó la verga, güey.
The more the man spoke, the more the hitmen continued pressing him for answers. The footage ended in horror.
Te cargó la verga, hijo de tu puta madre. Échale más gota a la verga. Échale más. Puro mallito flaco, hijo de su puta madre. Por abusones, verga. Lo que le va a pagar a todos los marranos, verga. Para que miren, bola de verga. Para que me van a quedar putos. Échale lumbre a la verga. Échale lumbre, el hijo de su puta madre.
As the hitmen doused the man in fuel and set him on fire, his screams mixed with the sound of flames as the executioners recorded the scene right there on camera. Even though the man never actually said he was working for the Chapitos, the Mayos still blamed them. And honestly, in Culiacán, everyone thought it had to be them anyway. But the Chapitos released a statement soon after. They denied ordering the attack on the tomb, saying they would never touch a child's grave. Instead, they accused Freddy Angulo Soto, known as El Yuco, a former ally who had turned against El Mayo, of carrying out the attack on the child's grave. But the Mayizas didn't buy that story. They were sure the Chapitos were behind the attack, and that's why, just weeks later, they struck again. This time targeting El Chapo's own bloodline. It was early morning in Culiacán when an explosion ripped through the parking lot of the City Club Plaza in the Tres Rios sector. The blast shattered storefront windows, blew apart several cars, and sent a thick column of smoke rising above them all. Even this blue car parked right in front of the building was smoked and left riddled with shrapnel and bullet holes. There were even suspicions that the vehicle had been used in the attack.
At the time of the attack, apparently perpetrated with improvised explosives, a vehicle was parked next to the cenotaph, which initially raised suspicions of a possible car bomb. However, this was ruled out. Preliminary investigations indicate that the vehicle was not used as part of the attack.
Police cordoned off the area within minutes, and that was when it became clear that the target of this attack was the cenotaph of Edgar Guzman Lopez, the eldest son of Joaquin, El Chapo, Guzman. A few hours later, the Mayizas claimed responsibility for the attack. In leaked audio messages sent to journalist Luis Chaparro, a man identified as a member of the faction said the bombing was revenge for the attack on the Zambada child's grave. They stole his toys, burned everything, even tried to take the ashes, so we burned theirs, the hitman said in the voice message. Now, to understand the weight of this attack, you have to know what that monument meant for the El Chapo family. Edgar Guzman Lopez was 22 years old when he was killed on May 8, 2008, right in that same parking lot.
This altar was built in honor of a son of El Chapo Guzman, murdered in this same spot in 2008. The place is under surveillance day and night, and when we tried to film it, a man approached us and asked our producer to erase the material we had recorded.
That night, he arrived at the Tres Rios Urban Development Mall with two cousins, Cesar Ariel Loera and Arturo Meza Cazares, the son of Blanca Margarita Cazares, La Emperatriz. Unbeknownst to them, an armed convoy had mistaken their vehicles for a rival group, and without any warning, they opened fire on them, unloading more than 500 rounds. This attack happened in the middle of the war between the Sinaloa Cartel and the Beltran Leyva organization, shortly after the capture of Alfredo Beltran Leyva, El Mochomo. So, the initial story was that El Chapo's own men were hunting Beltran Leyva gunmen that night, but fired on the wrong targets, mistaking Edgar's vehicle for theirs. But another theory claimed that the Beltran Leyva organization ordered the hit in revenge after El Chapo allegedly betrayed them and helped the government capture Alfredo Beltran Leyva earlier that year. Anyway, Edgar's body never left the scene. His family decided to bury him exactly where he fell, and that decision turned this commercial parking lot into sacred ground. Soon after the funeral, the family erected a large marble monument on that same spot, a cross surrounded by flowers and candles. Every year, the site was decorated for special dates: on May 8th for the anniversary of his death, on May 31st for his birthday, on November 2nd, Day of the Dead, and even Christmas and New Year's Day. Just a few months before the attack, in May 2024, the cenotaph had been completely covered with red roses shaped into the letters E and G, marking the 16-year anniversary of Edgar's murder. But now, that legacy has been destroyed in the middle of another civil war within the Sinaloa cartel.
This incident occurred a few minutes after the murder of a person in the Villaganita sector, and the authorities were subsequently notified at the police station near Palc 87 in southern Culiacán, an incident that is ongoing and about which we will be reporting.
And while many people don't know this civil war actually started with another grave vandalism. So, you guys probably know that the current war within the Sinaloa cartel broke out shortly after the dramatic arrest of El Mayo Zambada and Joaquin Guzman Lopez, El Chapo's son. But something even more shocking happened just 3 days after those arrests. So, it was July 28th, 2024, when workers at a cemetery between El Melon and Porticelli noticed unusual movements around the Damaso Lopez family chapel located in El Dorado, Sinaloa. By the next morning, they woke to find that the chapel had been broken into. The front doors were ripped open, windows shattered, and pieces of the iron railing twisted across the ground. Inside, the tombs of Damaso Lopez Garcia and Adolfo Lopez Nunez had been dug open, and their remains were gone. Yes, the perpetrators actually looted their bodies, but they didn't stop there. Just 3 days later, the same chapel was hit again, and this time, it was totally destroyed. The attackers used backhoes and all-terrain vehicles with steel cables to smash through the structure. The front gate was pulled from its hinges, the floor was covered in glass and broken tiles, and all the luxury materials that once made the mausoleum famous were looted. This was what the chapel looked like before the attack, and this was what it looked like after the attack.
In this place, the dead can't rest in peace either. Here, drug trafficker Arturo Beltran Leyva was buried under tight security. A short time after, his enemies left on his tomb the head of a mutilated corpse. When night falls, it's common for families and followers of the fallen narcos to gather in the mausoleums and remember them with corridos and gunshots.
For years, Damaso Lopez Nunez had been a key link between the Guzmans and the Zambadas. He once managed operations for El Chapo before branching off on his own, and his son, Damaso Lopez Serrano, El Minilik, later cooperated with US authorities after surrendering in 2017. So many saw the destruction of the family crypt as a punishment, a way of erasing the Lopez name from the cartel's bloodline. But it's still unclear which faction of the Sinaloa cartel carried out the attack. What is clear, however, is that nothing and nobody is off limits again in this cartel violence.
A civil war is raging in North Mexico. Two factions are vying for control of the Sinaloa cartel, once Mexico's mightiest, now weakened by the conflict. The two sides, Los Chapitos, sons of notorious drug trafficker Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, and Los Mayos. They've been battling out for 9 months now. Recently, a video of a phalanx of gunmen proclaiming that the Chapitos faction has allied with the Jalisco New Generation cartel, the country's other fentanyl-producing giant. Before, they've been sworn enemies.
In this business, even the worst enemy can be your ally when it's convenient.
Convenient, or when you're desperate. By all accounts, Los Chapitos are losing this war, ceding territory and allies to Los Mayos.
When the enemies can't get their hands on the living, they go for the dead. And that's total insanity. So now, the question is, if the cartels have started going after the dead, do you think there's any end in sight to this violence? Please feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth videos like this. Meanwhile, click on any of the cards on your screen right now to watch more of our videos.